Welcome to 2AT Studio, where our business is making technology work for your business. My name is Madeline McWhorter, and I'm the Creative Content Strategist here at Technical Resource Solutions, and also today's host.
My name's Al Such. I'm Digital Marketing Coordinator.
And today we're going to be talking about accessible web design. If you're a business owner or if you have a website, we'll have some awesome information coming for you in just a minute. Before we get into the technical parts of accessibility, can you define what it is and how it can affect a business and their customers?
Right. So accessible design is a facet of web design that takes into account all the different ways that people might access a website or use a computer. Not everybody uses a computer the same way. If they have a limb difference, they might use a different pointing device. If they have a visual impairment, they may not be able to see what's on the screen. And if they can't hear, then they may not be able to view videos or multimedia content in the same way. So taking accessible design into account, it's important to make sure that everybody can access your information in the same way that if your building is only accessible by a flight of stairs, it's important to try to include a ramp if possible.
Right. So if you saw our last live stream, we talked about what is SEO with our website administrator, Jennifer. And we did touch on that accessibility and how it really works with SEO. So can you talk about how those work hand in hand?
Yeah, so the foundations of SEO are actually built on the same foundations of accessible design. That is to say that the crawlers and spiders that browse a website to see if it should rank on Google, Bing, and other search engines work in much the same way as a screen reader. They're going to be looking for headings, hierarchy, descriptions, alt tags, all those kinds of things to make sure that that website is not only full of information that's usable, but also that it's accessible for anybody who's trying to use it. The danger there is if you've got a competitor who might have a more accessible website, they could rank higher even though you feel that your content is more relevant to that search. It's also important to make sure that that website's user experience is solid. You want to make sure that everything is organized for those screen readers.
Right. So you mentioned screen readers. How do those work? Does everyone have them? What does that work with that?
So a screen reader is a piece of software that takes the graphical information that you would normally see on the screen of a computer, and it's actually going to translate that into auditory information. So if you've got a bunch of text on the screen, it'll read that text out loud. And if you've got a hierarchy on your website, it's going to try to make sure that all of that content is read out loud in the terms of that hierarchy. And so it's kind of difficult to understand what it might sound like to listen to a website instead of to look at it. So we've prepared a couple of examples. It's the same website, but one example has been optimized for accessible design and one has not. So for starters, let's take a look at a website that is not accessible.
Visited link graphic red dot with a white letter C that symbolizes a moon crescent as well as the sun. This logo is visited link graphic followed by a black banner that says Citilights, which is the name of this online portal. Finally, visited link graphic, the slogan of the portal, your access to the city, follows in a turquoise green handwriting style visited link graphic and with a slight slant across the top banner. Combo box collapsed quick menu grader. Traffic, construction work on main road. Today, Monday, April 5th, 2021, sunny, 23 degrees Celsius. Table with 9 rows and 2 columns, row 1 column 1 row 1 through 9 column 2, row 2 column 1 link graphic location.href equals home.html, row 3, row 4 link graphic location.href equals news.html, row 5, row 6 link graphic location.href equals tickets.html, row 7, row 8 link graphic location.href equals survey.html, row 9 out of table.
Okay, so wow, a lot of stuff was just said out loud just then, but not a lot of it made sense, and in a few instances, it kind of just sounded like you were hearing a bunch of code being spat out at you. And honestly, that's the case. A screen reader is going to read what it sees, but if that stuff is not optimized for an accessible design, then you're not going to get information back that's very useful. So for contrast, here's the same website that has been optimized for accessible design.
List with 2 items, bullet link skip to content, within demo page, bullet link skip to navigation, within demo page, out of list, graphic city lights, your access to the city, graphic sunny spells clickable explore site by topic, combo box collapsed quick menu button go, traffic, construction work on main road, today, Monday, April 5th, 2021, sunny spells, 23 degrees Celsius, heading level 2 navigation menu, list with 4 items home, link news, link tickets, link survey out of list, heading level 1, welcome to City Lights. City Lights is the new portal for visitors and residents. Find out what's on, book tickets, and get the latest news. Heading Level 2 Link Heatwave linked to temperatures. After 3 years of effort, city scientists now agree that the primary cause of the 2003 heatwave was hot air from. Link Heatwave link full story. Heading Level 2 Link Man gets 9 months in violin case. Mayor, these kinds of crimes need more creative, effective punishments. For example, we could require link violin case link full story. Heading Level 2 Link lack of brains hinders research. Brain donations, huge drop off in brain donations due to the great success of slow traffic, safe. Link brain donations link full story. Heading Level 2 Elsewhere on the web. Please see the following websites for important information. City lights take no responsibility for their content. For artichoke advice, call the number below. List with 2 items link killer bees, link onions out of list. Artichoke advice telephone hotline, 1-269-24,653/1-269-CHOKE. Heading Level 2 City Lights Concert. Graphic Free Penguins playing on stage. Free Penguin slogan at zoo benefit concert causes confusion among city rockers. Adjective or verb. Link buy tickets. Heading Level 2 City Light Survey. Graphic anemone snowdrop flower blooming. More parks and more green space throughout the city at the price of already rare car parking spaces. How will this affect you? Link take survey. Link copyright 2012 link W3C registered. Link MIT. Link URSIM. Link KO.
Okay, so one thing that you may have been able to notice there is that as you were following along and listening to that description, you could probably follow along with your mouse to see exactly what was going on in that web page. And so you can see how it's important that somebody who isn't able to rely on vision to know what's going on in that website in an organized manner. Another thing that you may have noticed is that the differences between those two versions of that website were not very big in terms of graphics. They looked almost exactly the same. So it's important to know that the accessible portion of your design is really done on the back end. You don't have to worry about doing things that would compromise the graphic design of your website to ensure that it is accessible.
Yeah, and if you can't see it, it's one of those things with how do you look at it and say, is this actually accessible? So how can you assess if something is accessible?
Yeah, so like you said, it can be really hard to see those things if you're not relying on a screen reader, if you're not somebody who has a visual impairment that relies on high contrast reading. So there are a few tools that I actually use day to day when I'm designing a website. There's one called the Web Accessibility Evaluator tool. And so if your website doesn't have very many pages, you can actually paste the URL of one of those pages onto that tool, and it's going to grade your website and see if the headings make sense, if there are descriptions on those headings, if there are alt tags on all of your images. It's going to make sure that the structure of your menus is hierarchical and that everything really makes sense. Another thing, and this was a big fad about 10 years ago, you would have websites that have lighter dark gray text against a white background. And people that have visual impairments may not necessarily be able to see that text against that white background. So it's important to measure the contrast of the colors on your website. So there's also the A11Y or Ally Color Contrast Accessibility Validator. And we've linked to these both in the description below, but that tool will actually take the colors of your website and evaluate them against their backgrounds and make sure that everything is readable. And if it's not, it'll give you a suggestion for what color you can switch it out for.
Yeah, and these tools are really awesome too because, once again, if you see everything perfectly fine, you might not notice that these are issues. So it's really good to utilize these tools and see what you can do to make your customers have the best experience. But shifting gears a little bit, what are some other platforms that you can transfer these best practices over to?
Right. So if you're a business owner, you're probably posting on social media about your business. And while you're posting on websites that you don't necessarily have control over the accessible design of the website itself, these websites do have in place certain ways that you can make things accessible within your own content. So for instance, YouTube and other video sites have a place for you to put captions. And we know that it can be very expensive to hire transcriptionists to actually add captions to your videos. But I've got a handy trick for you. If you actually upload your video to YouTube, YouTube will automatically generate a caption file about that video. You can pull that caption file back down, edit those captions to make sure that they make sense, and if you want to cross-post that video to a variety of different platforms, you can do so because those caption files are readable by pretty much every platform in the same way. So, yeah.
Right. So it's important to that you think about what different elements there are on social media platforms, because when Facebook was created, you made status updates. Al is going to the store.
Right.
Madeline is doing this. But now there's a lot more emphasis on images and videos and all that. But they've also added different elements to those social platforms. Facebook, I think within the last couple of years, added Facebook stories, and you can add videos to those, and it's the same with Instagram stories. And while you may not caption them the same way you would with a full video, you still want to put that information in there just so if someone's clicking through that story and if it's a video, they can still see the gist of what's going on. And it's important to use that as a social media strategy because you never know where people are, what they're looking for, and if they're able to watch that video.
Right, for sure. There's an added benefit that you're not only including people who may not be able to hear at all, but when you're browsing Facebook or other social media websites and you're scrolling through and you see a video that you can't read the captions, there's a very good chance that you're in a room that's loud or that you don't necessarily want to listen to something. So if that video's got captions, you're more likely to stick around and continue watching. And if you're a business owner posting video on Facebook, that means you have something to say. So by including those captions, you're including a lot more people who may be interested in what you are wanting to say, but may not at that time be able to actually listen to that video.
Yeah. So are there any other social media strategies you can use that will make those platforms accessible?
For sure. So Instagram and LinkedIn have both added the ability to add alt tags to all the images that you post. And so a little bit of a primer, because we've talked about alt tags before, but not necessarily described at what they should be. An alt tag needs to describe your image in a way that literally tells the person who is viewing that image what the image contains. So, for instance, if you were to post a picture of a flower on your Instagram page, you would say, here's a purple flower, and it is in front of a big field of more flowers. And that way, the person who's actually browsing the website, if they're using a screen reader or if they're unable to make out what that image is, they can see that by you painting a word picture, that image contains something, it's going to be relevant to the caption below, and perhaps the link in your description is going to be relevant to that too.
So far we've touched on website and social media accessibility, but are there other marketing touch points that you need to make sure are accessible for your clients?
Right. So one of the things that is very important is sending emails. If you run a website, there's a good chance that you've got an email list that you send to people regularly. And the thing about emails is that they are built in almost the same way as a website. I mean, they're made of HTML. You use CSS to style them. They're a little bit more bare bones than what you can do on a website, but that doesn't mean that you should forego accessible design in those emails. That means making sure that all of your images have alt tags, all your links have alt tags, there's high contrast on that actual the text versus the background elements fall into the background, and your text is all descriptive. In addition, one of the things that can be very trying for somebody who's trying to use emails for marketing communications is misleading headlines. So if you're sending somebody an email, you don't want to include order confirmed in that subject line if they're not actually confirming an order. Not only does it reduce trust in your constituents, but it also means that people who are viewing those emails, realizing that that stuff is not relevant, they're going to be more likely to unsubscribe. They're going to be more likely to not engage because they no longer can trust that the emails that you send actually have something to do with something that's valuable to that client.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us today. And if you're looking for a website or to improve your accessibility, we would love to talk to you. We're all very passionate about SEO, design, accessibility. So we would really love just to talk to you about that. And thank you for joining us. If you want to hear more about IT, website, and marketing, be on the lookout for our live streams in the future.